Good evening, Charlton fans. I'm Ollie Greenman. You're watching 1905 coming live from the Valley. Here's what's coming up on tonight's show. We look ahead to Saturday's early kick-off against Ipswich Town and hear from Bob Peters, whose pre-match press conference was earlier today. We also hear from Matt Holland, and we're delighted to be joined live in the studio by Addicts legend Colin, Paddy Powell, and Matchday Live commentator Peter Finch. Good evening, gentlemen. We'll get straight into it in a moment, but just a reminder that you can get involved tonight by sending us a tweet using the hashtag CFC1905 or by making a comment on the Facebook page. We also have a competition again this week to win a signed programme for Saturday's game, signed by Morgan Fox, I believe, as a cover star. The question is, which club was Colin's testimonial match against? That was in the summer of 2013, I believe, wasn't it? So tweet us your answer, Facebook your answer, let us know, and we'll have a winner by the end of the show. So, Paddy, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Let's get back all the way back to the 70s. 1973 is where it all began for you, coming from Barnet. What are your memories of that time here at the Valley?
Well, I can remember walking in the ground and thought massive stadium. Obviously, I hadn't been to Charlton, and went into the ballroom, and Theo Foley. I'd got all these questions to ask from because Barnet were a non-league side, so I had all these questions to ask him, mainly about money, and so Charlton don't do this and Charlton don't do that, and he just hit me with the one, well, do you want to play league football? And obviously I did, and so I signed £40 a week straight away. How
times have changed, eh? But even back then, with Barnet being a non-league side and Charlton being a league side, how bigger was the difference there? Obviously a massive gulf now, but back then was it a similar sort of difference, do you think? Or?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it was slightly, you had a lot more players that played non-league football that had really good jobs and wouldn't go full-time, so I think it was a little bit stronger then, to be honest.
Did it take you a long time to adapt to playing professional football at a football league level rather than being at the non-league level?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I was instead of training one night a week, I was training every day, and in the end, I was, tired at the end of the week, not looking forward to playing football really. And but Theo said, "Look, we'll get you." I signed on the Tuesday, and he said, "Look, we'll bed you in, and we'll just take it easy, and I'm not going to play you straight away." And then on the Wednesday, he said, "I'm playing you Saturday." So,
how did the game go for you?
We drew 1-0 at York.
Yeah.
And I sort of enjoyed it.
Everyone always talks about that vast East Terrace. Obviously, back then it wasn't quite as populated it was maybe 20 years earlier in the 50s to 40s. But I mean, what was it like playing in that old valley as it was back then?
Well, in the big games, the atmosphere was brilliant. I mean, it was when you could see just people. Obviously, they could walk from one end to the other, and I've played in the ones at 3,000 just over against Halifax, and the 30,000. So yeah, I always loved playing at the Valley anyway.
Fast away, Pete, on.
Yeah, we won promotion from the third tier in 74, 75. I think that the game we clinched it was against Preston on a Friday night. What are your memories of that season? Because that was a really brilliant season for us.
Yeah, we started off, we had a great run, and then we needed about the last few games we kept losing, and we then had to beat Preston to go up, and Bobby Charlton was manager at Preston.
Yeah, and Nobby Stiles was his assistant, wasn't he?
But obviously we got the job done and got promotion.
My big memory of that night, because it was the night before the cup final, and it was coming down at the Valley, was the fans coming on the pitch, and Richie Bowman being carried off on someone's shoulders, because you'd never seen him otherwise because he was so short.
No, he done well that season, Richie.
And looking at that season, who were the key players in that team for you?
Well,
other than yourself, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Derek Howes, and I mean, we used to let a lot of goals in, but score a lot, so it was enjoyable to watch. It wasn't sometimes enjoyable. It was enjoyable for me to play, but you always felt you had to score 2 or 3 to actually win games.
And the first time that you sort of played with Derek Howes, do you think, he's a bit tasty, this one?
Well, I played against him when he was at Dartford and I was at Barnet, and we played him in the trophy.
Yeah.
So I knew he was a little bit wild, and but he's the best goal scorer I've played with, without a doubt.
We have a quote here from in the 70s. Colin was one of the best crosses of the ball from his era. As a striker, he made things easy for you because all you had to do was concentrate on making a bit of space for yourself. He also described you as a road runner back then as well, for the pure pace down the wing, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I was always quite fit, and I wasn't particularly quick over sort of 5 yards, but over a distance, I sort of built up speed, and yeah, I mean, playing with Derek and Mike Flanagan, I mean, people forget that Mike Flanagan was in that team, but he was a good player as well.
We just saw some of Killer's goals just there. One of them was the famous one against Hull City, which got goal of the season, didn't it, I believe?
It was goal of the season on the big match.
We didn't see it in its entirety today. We will do it at the end of the programme, I promise you that. You started it and you ran diagonally all the way across the pitch. What are your memories of that goal? That was
yeah, I mean, that was on television, and until I saw it on television, I didn't believe it. I didn't normally run that far, and no, I mean, it was a sort of special goal, really, for me.
You must be knackered by the time you got
I
over
was
there.
actually, yeah. It took me a few weeks to recover from that.
We can't hear it on that clip, but I think we might be showing it a bit later on with the sound. But as the ball gets played out, you can hear a supporter shouting out, "Rubbish!"
Yeah.
Did you hear all that?
That was
you
the wife.
just caught in the moment.
Yeah, no, I don't know what. I think it was having to go at Phil Warman, who sort of held onto the ball, and
Well, he knew you were making that run, didn't he?
Yeah,
Leave you to it.
Yeah, superb. You mentioned Mike Flanagan. In 78, along with Mike Flanagan and Laurie Abrahams, you made a move to New England, teaming in Boston. How do you feel about that? Because it's halfway through the season, and suddenly you're going off to New England.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was more April time and we were struggling in the league, and then we got enough points, or what Andy Nelson thought was enough points, and said, like, you can go now. And like 3 of us went. We then, 2 games later, we lost both of them. Everyone else around us won, I think. And then he rang up and said, "You're going to have to come home."
Yeah.
And the Americans said, like, "You can't do that." And then they needed a point at Orient, or we needed a point at Orient, and that game was abandoned.
Yeah.
And then I think we drew 0-0 and stayed up, but it was lucky, really.
Yeah, that was a bit of a gamble.
Yeah,
I don't think
it was
it'd happen
gamble.
these days, would it, really?
No, it was a big gamble.
There's a lot being made, well, back then certainly, about the bust-up at Maidstone between Flash and Killer, the battle between those two. There was any ill will between, Flanagan going out to America. Maybe Killer wasn't too happy about that, and something was said on the pitch. And I mean, what was your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of bad feeling about the American thing. I think Mike Flanagan said something about Derek in a paper in America, and it got back. But they seemed all right, and we come back and played, and I think on the Saturday before we beat Oldham, I think Derek scored and Mike Flanagan, and it was just that Maidstone game. You're playing a non-league team, you're getting frustrated. They'd gone 1-0 up, we equalised, and was all over them, but we couldn't score. Mike Flanagan went through and should have squared it and didn't, and that caused the row. I mean, I only remember it. I was left up front on my own.
I'll be honest with you.
I mean, to have 2 your team, I mean, these things usually it little flares up in training, but on pitch as well. I mean, there must be, for the manager to cope with the fallout afterwards, must have been hard going.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was playing in the game. You're disappointed that 2 of your teammates are fighting, but it was a long-term effect, really. We lost sort of, I don't know, 40 goals a season out of the 2 of them. So we're never going to replace them, and we struggled from there on in, really.
I mean, yeah, to get one striker that's going to bang 20 in a season is hard enough. But as you said, 2 of them. I mean, they were 2 exceptional players.
Oh yeah, 2 great goal scorers. I mean, and that almost ruined the club, really, in terms of getting promotion.
Andy Nelson was the manager. What was he like as a manager for you? Was he good?
I mean, he was. He wasn't great on praising people. Very tough man.
Yeah.
He knew he'd look at games, and after 20 minutes he could rearrange tactics and everything. Very good at that. Just didn't ever say well done to anyone. I mean, for 2 seasons I played every game, and he never said well done once. Well, always think I must have had a couple of decent games, but he was a tough manager, very tough.
And how did he compare to someone like Mike Bailey, who was another manager that you worked under?
Well, Mike Bailey was lovely man, and loved working for him. I mean, I love working for Andy Nelson, but Mike Bailey was like a breath of fresh air. You know, he'd come in as I want to play like this, and he would praise you, you know, and he'd be very proud of his team, and he was a great manager.
It sounds to me, from your personal point of view, that what you want to see a team that you're playing in actually playing football rather than trying to get the ball down and play it properly. Yeah,
I mean, say Mike Bailey lifted everyone when he took over, because Andy, and I'll say it's difficult to knock Andy because he done okay and he signed some decent players, but you always felt that he sort of didn't get the best out of players by knocking them down.
He seemed to me, I mean, just seemed like a fairly aloof figure to supporters, because I mean, there's none of the media that there is today, like all the social media, so fans could only see him on the pitch side during the games, and you didn't hear much from him.
No, he was a bit aloof, and you know, when we got promotion, talked about it earlier, the Preston game, someone said to him, "Are you coming for a drink over the Valley Club?" And he went, "Well, we've only got promotion." He said, "We haven't." You know.
Really?
Oh yeah, he wasn't. You know, he didn't come for a drink, but we made up for it.
Yeah.
We'll have a
I mean, if that Valley Club was still around, the walls could talk. They could tell some stories.
No, we've had a few drinks in there. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like nowadays. You know, we'd have a drink on a Tuesday after a game, and you know, come back training Wednesday and.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can you remember your last game with the club? Was it 1981 against Gillingham? Is that right?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Memories of that at all?
Yeah, no. I know we'd already got promotion, and Mike Bailey said, you know, don't bother coming in training, have a few days off, and then we come in, and I think we beat Gillingham 2-1. But yeah, it was a good atmosphere. It's nice and relaxed, where you know you haven't got to win. I mean, sometimes you see teams when they switch off. Is it harder to play when or is it easier? Or did you find it easier? Just, you know, there's nothing on it. I can go out and just play football and enjoy it. I found that game easier, but you know, it's difficult when you've got to win, like the Preston game, because we'd been favourites after Christmas to get promotion, and we nearly blew it. So that became a high pressure game.
Going back to the Gillingham game, were you aware that was going to be your last game for the club?
No, not at all. No. I had a contract for another year. Yeah. And then Mike Bailey went, Alan Murray took over and said, you know, I'm going to sign my own players. He wasn't nasty or anything. Yeah. He said, you know, you've been here a long time, you can stay here, or, you know, you can try and find another club. And then a couple of weeks later, Keith Peacock took over at Gillingham and signed me.
Was it a big wrench leaving Charlton at that time? Because I mean, being part of your...
Yeah, I regrets. I didn't say goodbye really properly. You know, it wasn't like I was sort of retired. You know, I didn't know at the end of the season I was going. But that's one little regret.
Before we move on, Paddy, looking back at your career as a player, what do you think was your biggest achievement here at Charlton?
Oh God, biggest achievement. Playing almost every game. Most seasons, I think, apart from the last sort of couple, I just loved playing. And I mean, my one regret is that we didn't sign a couple of defenders when we were doing really well. But biggest achievement, I don't know, difficult really. There's so many games. I mean, probably the game-wise, beating Tottenham and Chelsea and down here.
Big results against the big teams.
Yeah, great, big results. Yeah.
Okay, back to the present day. Bob Peters spoke to the media ahead of Saturday's clash with Ipswich earlier today, and here are the best bits.
8-goal leading scorer Igor Vetsakelli has been troubled by a groin strain, I think it is. Is he available to you for Saturday?
It was a calf injury, but he didn't train today. He's going to train tomorrow, and hopefully he's going to be involved on Saturday.
A good chance, better than 50-50?
Yeah, I think 55-45.
Bobby, your first choice goalkeeper Stephen Henderson missed the derby with Millwall. Is he available on Saturday?
No, it's not going to be available. He's struggling with a tendon in his shoulder, and okay, if we play him or we let him train, he could be out for a long time. But again, I think Nick Pope did terrific, so we need to give him all the credits and support him, because I think he was one of our best players on Saturday.
Any other injury doubts ahead of Saturday?
Johnny Byens is struggling with his hammy. Okay, we're going to see it tomorrow whether he can train or not, and otherwise, okay, we take him over the weekend, and then we will not play him on Saturday, so hopefully he can be fit for the next game.
Your opponents, Ipswich, sit 4th in Championship, 4 points off the top. On the face of it, they'll put that unbeaten home record under pressure.
Yeah, but we're always under pressure, and I'm not too bothered with an unbeaten home record. We just want to go there and try to win the game. But again, like you said, if you play a team who's fought in the league and unbeaten, I think, or one time beaten in the last 10, then you know you face a big task. But again, we can only try to go out there and try to get the 3 points, and most of all play better than we did against Millwall, because I'm a fan of playing football and passing the ball, and that's what we didn't do enough, I think, to beat Millwall. But again, then it's all about putting the ball in the net, and hopefully Saturday we can play our good football again and score a few goals.
Many supporters believe the signing of another striker could make all the difference. Can you understand how they feel?
Of course, and we also are looking for. But for me, the importance is that we sign a striker who will be a quality add to the team. I think you saw we brought in Coquelin. You saw he's a quality player, and he's strengthening our team. And for me, that's the most important thing. We are looking for a good striker, but again, that costs a lot of money. And again, we don't want to be one of the teams just bringing in a striker to content the fans or whatever. We're looking, but we want to bring in a striker like we did with Igor Vetokele, where the fans think like, "Whoa, what a signing that is!" Afterwards, so for me, that's the most important thing.
Are you hoping to do business in the January window?
Yeah, again, we hoping to do it, but it depends on the price and the availability, and we will see. But again, we're looking for players. The scouts know the profile we want, but again, it's not an easy task to get a good striker in.
Peter's there. Paddy, we were just chatting in the break. You haven't had much at all been able to get down to the Valley this season, but you've been keeping up with results and stuff. He makes a comment there. He says, "We're looking for a striker, but we want one who is going to add some quality to the squad." Do you think there's some wisdom in that, not just going out and buying any old sort of target man for Igor to play off?
Yeah, I think that's sensible, because you can panic buy or panic get loan players on, and he's obviously a shrewd man anyway, and he's going to pick and choose who he wants. So I think that's sensible.
Yeah, Pete, we know we need a big man up there to support him, but
yeah,
but who do you get? Like, do you know what I mean? It's not just a case of saying so and so. Emil Heskey's available, but you don't. You know, it's not about just getting any old body in, is it?
No, it is, and we've signed a keeper on loan today, and you can see on the social media the reactions. Oh, we need a striker, but if they're not out there,
we need a goalkeeper as well.
We need a goalkeeper, but if there's not a striker available that's the right, I mean, you can go and pluck a kid from a Premier League side who hasn't got much experience. That that could be.
Especially at the moment we've got quite a consistent team at the moment. And it might disrupt things a little bit.
Igor does
right.
need some help there. He does need a bit more help. And if the worst comes to worst and Igor gets injured, you know, you're down to the bare bones. So
I hope it doesn't come to that.
But yeah, you want quality rather than.
And obviously Joe Piggott's he's returned from his loan now as well, so he's always an extra option should we need it.
That is the option. Yeah, Joe's there, and Ahern Grant as well, who's been coming through. So we might see a bit more of him in the next few weeks.
Let's talk about Ipswich now. Obviously we've got them Saturday, 12:15 kick-off, don't forget. They've only lost once in 14. Bit of a surprise package. They've been really, really well under Mick McCarthy. They're going to be tough, aren't they, Saturday?
Yeah, but they're very similar to Charlton. I don't think anyone expected Charlton to be where we are. I think people were expecting us to struggle. You saw the tipsters, and Mick McCarthy's a very experienced Championship manager, and he's got a good track record in the Championship. I think he's got quite a few teams promoted. And you know you're going to get when you play one of his teams. I think Colin was saying in the break when we were talking about it, it's direct football.
Yeah, it gets the
and
job
it's
done.
going to be fairly physical at times, isn't it? So Andre Biquet may be a little bit busy Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. Colin, during your playing days, what went through your mind when we were playing an Ipswich side? You know, obviously they had some quite a bit of success back then.
Yeah, there was always divisions
Yeah.
higher, but we did play them in the cup when Terry Butcher and Russell Osman and Alan Brazil, and they were a very, very good side. But I mean, I've got a lot of time for Mick McCarthy. I know him a little bit, and he's a really nice man, straight and honest, like his team really. And that probably this fixture on Saturday is probably the pick of the league.
Yeah.
I know it's on television as well, but it should on paper it's going to be a good game.
Two sides in good form, and we can have a look at Ipswich's form. We mentioned they've only lost once in 14, but that's their last 5. Obviously, no losses in there. Some good wins, and obviously Blackpool. You're going to be Blackpool, with all due respect. Wolves at home. Wolves have had a little bit of a dip recently, but Watford, a very good side, as we've seen already this season.
And Bournemouth, 2-2 draw against Bournemouth, and away at Bournemouth at Goldsands. Bournemouth are one of the form sides that they're really flying at the moment, doing really well, aren't they?
Jan Kermagant getting a flying goal in that one as well.
He got a spectacular goal. Yeah. Maybe we could get him in January. That'd do it, wouldn't it?
Let's not play games.
Move on. Let's move on.
I mean, what you say that? You know, what player do you think really could make a difference to Charlton this season? I mean, Paddy, having seen over the last few seasons Championship football, I mean, is there anyone who you think would fit really well in this sort of side, other than Jan Kermagant?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is getting a proven goal scorer is the most difficult job in.
Well, I feel like we've achieved that.
Yeah.
With Igor.
Yeah.
But it's just about getting that
support man,
the foil, if you like.
I'm sure the manager who's astute, and I'm sure he'll come in the next few weeks.
And well, is there any teams that have impressed you over the last couple of seasons? Obviously, this season you'll be able to see many in the flesh, but there's been some good teams like Nottingham Forest, haven't they, who are good but just not consistent enough.
I mean, I think Middlesbrough now have
hit their stride.
I mean, they've had a disappointing couple of seasons where they flattered to deceive a little bit, but they look like more solid now and getting more difficult to beat. Yeah,
we were talking about goal scorers a moment ago, getting that proven goal scorer. Daryl Murphy's been banging them in for Ipswich. We'll take a look at some of his goals in a moment if we've got that. It's all about having that key man, isn't it? Daryl Murphy hasn't banged in too many in the last few seasons, but just as Ross McCormack did for Leeds last year, you find that form, you get a few and you're away.
Not sure about the tattoos though.
It's all the rage nowadays, but you know, one of those players that just works hard, gets different sorts of goals.
Yeah, I mean, he's done well there. He's twisted and turned and got the player away. And he's muscled that player out of the way, and that's a beautiful finish. He's placed that, hasn't he? He's not hit that with power. He's curled past that in. He looks
10 in 13. He's got.
Yeah, it's in the air, and I mean, look, running onto it and chipping the keeper. He knows where the goal is, and he's
scored all sorts of goals there, hasn't he? And
they're not tap-ins as such. They're all from left foot, right foot, and I mean that's an opportunist effort. And he's got one with his head, and he shows that when he's in front of goal, he seems to be quite calm, doesn't he? So
he's got a good mixture of strength, being robust, and having that bit of skill as well.
A Mick McCarthy type of player, I would say.
So
he'll have to be watched, but. I think Andre Biquet and Ben Hayden might give him keep an eye on him on Saturday.
And Ipswich, in the same way as Charlton have done in the last couple of years, indeed in our recent history, they got a good academy there, and they're just starting now to churn out some good players. Teddy Bishop, 18-year-old, he's been impressing there. He's one to watch out for certainly on Saturday.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see him. I've not seen him play yet, but it would be good to see him. It's good to see there are some good young players around the Championship. We've got Jordan Cousins is an example here, and we had Diego last year. And you go and look at Derby with Will Hughes, and some real talents, and the academies are doing well, aren't they?
Yeah, the youngsters seem to come through a lot quicker these days, and mainly because of money. I think clubs are putting them in, and they've done well.
I think they're having to, because because of financial fair play. I know it's eased a little, the recent changes, but because of financial fair play, you can't go out and spend a huge amount of money. Like you remember in the 90s when Blackburn got taken over by Jack Walker.
It's all relative,
millions
isn't it?
and millions, and suddenly
that's what figure now, isn't that
you
impressive? But it's all relative, isn't it?
You can't do that anymore. So you've got to develop players from the academy, and that's where Charlton and Ipswich, I think, may have the advantage over time, not straight away, but over the next few years.
Okay, let's head back now to the 95-96 season to watch Charlton take on Ipswich at Portman Road with a certain Carl Leaburn in scintillating form.
Robinson with the corner. And Ulenbeek gets it away. Luton sends it back in. And there's no flag here. There's a chance for Kim Grant. And it'll fall for Chappell. And Chappell scores. Charlton are level. There was no flag from the linesman. Phil Chappell picked up the pieces. And on his first game of the season, Phil Chappell scores. Craig Forrest, the Ipswich goalkeeper, is going to be replaced, I feel, by Neil Gregory. Peter Garland now for Charlton. Now it's out to Kim Grant. Across the face of the goal. Leaburn! 2-1 to Charlton. Carl Leaburn scores and the Addicts have capitalised. Kim Grant showing a nice touch there. Grant in towards Leaburn. Leaburn is up on his own. He's looking for support. Going one way to the left. Oh yes! Carl Leaburn! It's 3-1! And Gregory's beaten again. And Carl Leaburn may well have wrapped up the points here for Charlton. Ulenbeek was the target. Robinson cut it out. And Charlton are on the attack once again. Leaburn, he's got lingering support. Leaburn plays it in. Linger! Oh, superb! How about that from Paul Linger? His first ever league goal for Charlton, and it's wrapped up the points here at Portman Road. Carl Leaburn now stepping up to face Neil Gregory to notch his first ever hat-trick from the penalty spot to make it 5-1 for Charlton. Leaburn versus Gregory.
The full-time score, Ipswich 1.
If they go a 5-1 win, we'll take that on Saturday, won't we, lads? But Carl Leaburn, we've got to give him a mention. A hat-trick didn't happen very often. I think that was his only one.
I think that was his only hat-trick, wasn't it? I mean, Carlo, bless him. I mean, whenever we've spoken to former players, they've always said that the job that Carlo did for the team was quite unselfish in terms of thankless tasks that he did. I mean, Maltz the other week was praising. He said
he was the best striker.
He played with him. And he didn't have the games to goals ratio, but
it wasn't his game though, was it?
But it wasn't what he was about. But to get a hat-trick at Ipswich, it's not bad at Portman Road.
We'll take that. Yeah. Okay, we haven't really touched on the Millwall draw yet, but I suppose we better.
Do we have to?
Frustrating day at the end, wasn't it? If only for that one chance.
Yeah, in the 94th minute, I can just imagine how mad the commentary team would have gone had George taken that away.
I was nearly over the top of the press box myself. That had gone in, but
yeah, we just can't seem to. I mean, having said that, Millwall didn't get any goals against us, but we just can't seem to get a goal against Millwall at the moment. We just can't get. We've had so many draws. We had a draw last year at their place 0-0, and the season before.
Always tight as derbies are.
Tight, yeah. But if that had gone in 94th minute, George would be an absolute hero. So.
And I guess I was gutted at the end of the game purely just because of that chance. Those with a nervous disposition, look away now because we're going to break it down a little bit. Igor does well to sort of keep it alive there, and Callum Harriott with a good ball in doesn't sort of get the mention it deserves. But then here he is, George. He's done half the job, but hasn't quite finished it off. I think we'll have a look. His first touch, which is just before that, takes it up, I think, and doesn't do him a. Could he do better there? Should he be scoring? I mean, Paddy, if that was you back in '74, what would you have done there?
You're asking the wrong person about scoring goals, by the way.
I don't know. We've got some good footage of you.
You've probably scored more than us, though, in the league, haven't you? Really?
It's not for me to tell him how to finish, but I mean, I suppose he could have took it round him and just knocked it to the side and knocked it in, but it's easier in hindsight.
The keeper was on him very quickly, so I think
he does
hitting it first time might have been out of the question. But yeah, I mean, could he have gone around the right and then? But it all happens in the flash of a second to a player, doesn't it? When you're chasing the ball at that sort of stage of the game, difficult one. But,
I mean, what do you think? Maybe we talked about his first touch. Bobbling it up, he's got to take it over him there.
Yeah.
Fine. But do you think maybe he could have done more just to bust a gut, to get ahead on that, to take it over the line? Because the defender, I think it's Warburton and then Alan Dunn making the eventual clearance.
Yeah.
They sort of have to make up a bit more ground than George has to. Do you think maybe he's not aware that this guy's going to be breathing down his neck quite so quickly?
Possibly. Yeah. He may not be aware of who's around him, and he just thinks all he's got to do is, and maybe the player coming in on his left-hand side has caught him by surprise. I think, and it looks like that way.
That was great defending actually, but Dunn to get back there that quick. I mean, he's probably not the quickest lad, but it was disappointing because it's perfect time to score. But
and it's Millwall.
And it's Millwall, yeah.
Well, you played a couple of those sort of derbies against Millwall. What are your memories of playing against?
Oh, they're horrible. Yeah, I didn't enjoy them. I mean, the first few games, Harry Cripps was the legend left back who used to kick everything. I mean, he later joined us. And
Did he have a couple of swipes at you then?
Oh yeah, he's always And down the old den, you know, you had the far side there. It was
horrible, wasn't it?
I sort of edged in there.
How much did it make a massive difference to I mean, the people that say it did, and they had a ridiculous home record for quite a while, you know, a long way back in the day. But was that the real difference maker? Their crowd.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were a difficult team to beat in them days, and they weren't a bad side either. So made it more difficult. But you know, on that far side there, you had.
Was it a situation like
sort of 5,000 dockers all having a go at you?
Did you feel like if you were to nutmeg, you know, Cripps, then they're going to be...
I don't think Harry Cripps is the sort of player you'd want to nutmeg, really.
No,
that's it.
The retribution would be fairly swift.
You want to be able to walk out of the den.
He used to sort of, as you tried to go past him, he used to just put his arm out and just punch you in the stomach and make it look as if it was an accident. And yeah, he was very good at that, Harry.
Away with it. Was it a lot more physical though, wasn't it, back then? You could get away with little digs and little... Were you a victim of that a little bit more than you were dishing it out?
Yeah, I mean, you could get away with tackles. I mean, you know, you could get, especially playing up north, you know, you'd get smashed about 4 times and then the ref would say, well, one more and I'll have a word with him. And sort of, so, no, it was a lot tougher. I could jump quite high.
As the sort of player you were as well on the wing, being tricky, a bit of pace, you must have been on the receiving end of a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, so I used to jump quite high and get out of the way, but yeah, you know, it was a bit nasty because they'd always, you know, the manager's instructions to our fullbacks, let him know you're there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure the other teams used to do it as well.
Must always be a pleasure though when you get the better of them, you get a better of a fullback,
It's nice,
get across and then get an assist.
The greatest thing is to get them booked quite early and then they can't tackle you again, but it didn't happen in my day.
What was it? I mean, Derek, they must have gone in steaming into Derek Gale's killer at times.
He gave it back,
and he gave as good as he got, didn't he? So
Oh God, yeah. I mean, he got.
And he'd look out for his teammates as well.
Oh yeah, no, he'd go and if the left back was kicking me, he'd go and sort him out. And yeah, I mean,
on the pitch or afterwards?
Oh yeah, well, both probably, but he probably got sent off. I don't know, 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I haven't looked at those stats. We should look it up. Though,
Yeah, when we have him as a guest on the sofa, we'll go through those stats then. Yeah.
We'll get on that. We'll pick up the phone to him. Nick Pope, talk about him. Stephen Henderson had the shoulder, that's shoulder ligament damage.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to keep him out for Saturday as well. Nick Pope stepped up. Sort of nervous game for him to come into, but he did quite well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did well. I mean, we saw last year when Joe Pigott played here against Millwall, that was a tough game for him. I think for Nicky Pope, I think he's confident in his own ability. And he had when he played earlier in the season, he did make an error, but you saw straight away in that game where he made that error that he recovered almost immediately. And I think Ben Roberts, Ben Roberts thinks highly of him. I think he'll be fine. I think he's a good young keeper. And the only way you're going to get you can improve these players is by playing them. And
exactly.
He's 22, isn't he? 21, 22 now.
So. I think those games early in the season where there was the odd nervous kick, and you mentioned the mistake in the Wigan game, I think.
Well, he's moved on from that.
And it's good that he had that early in the season. So when he is coming in against someone like Mill, if that was his first game, and Bob Peters mentioned after the game on Saturday, gave him praise how well he did, and the fact that it was a derby game, added pressure, and he dealt with it well, and the fact that he had 3,000 baying Millwall fans behind him. And he has said himself he actually thrived on it, and he said he enjoyed the banter. Like, a few of the words I'm sure were more than banter.
That's what you want.
He thrived on it.
You want a keeper that will take all that and get on with stuff, and which to me looks like Nicky Pope. He's a decent keeper. I mean, his record at York City last season, where he kept goodness knows how many clean sheets, tells the story. I think he'll be good. Yeah,
that's the difference. I mean, he's played probably 20 odd games for York, didn't he? So, I mean, he's got a little bit more experience, but no, he's every time I've seen him, done well.
We've seen young keepers come through. Graham Tutt in your day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think Graham Tutt would have gone on to be a top goalkeeper
without a shadow of a doubt.
Till that injury,
We'll touch on it before we move on, but we mentioned Neil Etheridge earlier. He's coming on loan today from Oldham. Important, do you think, just to get a bit of backup on the off chance Nicky rolls his ankle in training or something, just to have someone. He's still a young keeper himself, Neil Etheridge, but he's been around for a while. He's been at Fulham. He was on loan with us back in League One. People seem to forget that. Didn't play obviously, but good move to do that. Just take the pressure off Dylan Phillips a little bit on the bench.
I speak to Colin and What do you think?
Yeah, I think to get one in, I think if you bring him in and you can sort of blood him in, he'll know the sort of tactics sooner than Nick Pope get injured and then you've got to rush and get one in. So he's got time to settle in. I think it's good to actually do that.
It's good planning, isn't it? Okay, well, Charlton and Millwall cancelled each other out on Saturday. Ipswich battled to a 2-2 draw with AFC Bournemouth at the Golden Stadium. Here are the highlights.
Two form teams in Bournemouth and Ipswich meeting. Bournemouth have won 7 of the last 8 games in all competitions. Ipswich have lost only 1 of the last 13. 2-2 at Portman Road when they met back in April. Ipswich have beaten in the last 5 meetings in all competitions with Bournemouth. That's not a bad try! Woodward coming to the Tractor Boys' rescue. This is Pugh to keep it going. And the strike is blocked. It was Arthur's effort. Really good stylist for Bournemouth. In back is Murphy, but he's lost out possession. Francis to the byline. And the acrobatic goal! What a goal! What a stunning goal by Jan Kamorgans! Absolutely sensational. From Kamorgan, he could get even better. What a save from Bialikowski. Bodies in the way. Pugh denied by the goalkeeper. Swinging from Anderson, and the header is off the top of the crossbar. Both sides now have managed to hit the woodwork. Murphy is the one with the touch. Here's McGoldrick, and still David McGoldrick. Tight angle, Burridge down well. Is a deep one, and the header is tipped over by Artur Burridge. Christoph Berra with the header. Deep delivery. Bialikowski gets something on it, and that's goal bound by Pugh. And Bialikowski gets down to deal with it. Here's Mings. Oh, and it's found. Bishop, who scores, and it's 1-1. 5 minutes after the restart, Ipswich Town back on level terms. Arthur. This is Wilson. Arthur wants it back. Wilson still. And on he goes. And it's Richie! 4 minutes after Ipswich Town got themselves back level. Man Richie for Bournemouth puts them back in front. Down goes Ramsey, and the referee is not interested. Michael Bull with any appeals for a penalty. Decent hit, goalkeeper unconvincingly getting it clear. Bialikowski. Comes the delivery, and Murphy's header is 2-2! 14 minutes to go, and for a second time today, Ipswich have got themselves back level.
Okay, let's get to some of the viewers' questions, your questions. Pete, do you want to kick us off with the first one?
Steve wants to know how many free kicks did you win by pushing the ball past the defender then running up his back? I don't know what he's trying to accuse you of there, Colin.
About 7 a game, probably.
Was it 7 a game?
Or 8, yeah. No,
Definite.
that was my party trick. If I couldn't beat them for pace, I just used to jump on their backs and most times get a free kick. So loads of them, yeah.
And the referees, the clubs didn't wise up to what you were
No,
up to?
no. I got away with murder, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Cheers, Steve.
Okay, this question from Kieran. Colin, what was your most memorable moment at CAFC?
Getting promotion, I think, from both times. But I think the 80-81 season under Mike Bailey, where we had Derek Howes, Paul Walsh up front, Kevin Smith, had a really decent side. That again, another disappointment at the end of it because we didn't go on, and Mike Bailey left and Alan Mullery took over. But yeah, I think getting promotion.
Okay, Pete, next one up.
No, you've got the next one. You've got the one.
2 each, I thought we had.
No.
Well, I think this one, I'm not sure this is from. We haven't got a name for it. But is there any substitute to playing properly? Professionally, sorry. Playing properly. You always play properly, no sure. This is handwritten, by the way. Cheers, Jim. Any substitute for playing the game?
No, obviously, it's I think great honour. I always treated it as, you're very, very lucky to be a professional footballer. You need a bit of luck to get there. You need a bit of hard work when you're there as well. But I'm a lover of non-league football as well, so I go and watch quite a lot. And but no, I was very honoured to play professional football.
Good opportunity. We're talking about non-league there. We mentioned Steve Brown just before we went on there. Left Ebbsfleet yesterday. A bit of a shame to see that, wasn't it? Yeah,
I go down there quite a bit because mate Steve Gritt's assistant manager, and really disappointing that he's lost his job.
It's a funny league that though, isn't it? The Conference South. It's not just a case of Ebbsfleet having a bit of a bankroller, if you like, with the money, but there's a few of those teams Bromley have a bit of money behind them, and Eastleigh last year did the same thing. Yeah. It's not as simple as just.
No, it's not. I think they've got a good budget to work to. It's a bit like the Championship. Getting that goal to get in the Premiership is getting in that conference, because then you're one step away from the Football League, so there's pressure on you, and
it's harder because there's only one spot and then one playoff spot.
Yeah, and then but it's obviously disappointing because I really like Steve Brown, so very disappointing for him.
Okay, final question here. This is from a Mr. Keith Peacock, whoever he may be. And I know what he's getting at here because it's something I've heard you relay before, but there's a goal you scored against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, and we do have it at the end of the show, I believe. A screamer, cutting and shooting into the top corner of your left foot, I believe. But then he's asking about Andy Nelson's reaction afterwards, rather than praise you.
Yeah, it's at half time. He hated you shooting from distance and it going well wide. He hated that, and he would go. But I've gone in at half time and it's 1-1, and I've scored this goal from sort of 30 yards. And he said to me, "Lucky that went in, son." He said, "Because I would have gone mad if I hadn't have gone in." And that sort of talk about deflate you in no time. But
so you went in with a smile.
I went in with a smile, come out like never going to shoot again from any distance. But he had this thing about that. I'm just thinking those are your playing moments. There's a moment to me that stands out. I remember he was a player, but is the '98 playoff final where you're commentating with Mark Mansfield when Sasha saves that penalty. It just shows you emotion for the game. I can understand the emotion at that moment. That game was the greatest game I've ever seen. It just went from one thing to another. You think Sunderland were through, then we were through, and then Sunderland were through, and you think no chance of ever coming back, and then we come back, and to actually get promotion after that was just unbelievable. It's an unbelievable game. From a personal point, how do you manage to keep it together when that's all that counts? Well, it didn't. I'm just thinking ahead. It could happen to me at some stage. Yeah, I think you went. Because you went at the. Yeah, I went completely. I was crying. I think Mark Mansfield was crying, and it was just a great moment. Really, it was a great moment. But no, I wouldn't be any good in commentating.
Okay, earlier this week I caught up with Matt Holland and discussed his decision to leave Ipswich for Charlton back in 2003.
When I signed for Charlton, I'd spoken to Portsmouth previous to speaking to Charlton, so I'd turned down Aston Villa the year before. Mm-hmm. And that summer I was talking to Portsmouth at the time, and I was away internationally with Ireland, and I was in Dublin. Yeah. It was right at the back end of the season when I got the call from, I think, Joe Royal, actually, who was the manager at Ipswich, just to say, look, we've had an offer from Charlton, which we accepted. Would you be willing to speak to speak to the club. And I actually was on I think I was on a late flight back from Dublin, but I changed my flight, so I got an early morning flight to go and meet Curbs at Waltham Abbey, at the hotel at the Swallow at Waltham Abbey.
Yeah.
So I came back slightly early than I was expecting, spoke to Curbs, bit of to and fro with the agent and stuff, and eventually signed. So that's pretty much how it came about, really.
Okay. Was it quite difficult to leave Ipswich at that time? Was it just, I guess, right for your career, I suppose, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think when we got relegated, I sort of gave it a year to try and get Ipswich back in the Premier League, and obviously had a lot of good times at the club, and so yeah, I suppose it was arranged to leave.
Yeah.
Such a good club and somewhere where I had a good affinity with the fans, and also I'd had two good managers there as well, in George Burley and Joe Royle. So yeah, I suppose in lots of ways it was different to leave, but at the same time, I'd done another year in the Championship and wanted to be back playing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And so that opportunity came along. I spoke to Portsmouth and Charlton before agreeing to the move. But as soon as I sort of, I met Curbs, and I knew a lot about the club anyway. We'd sort of had plenty of battles over the years anyway.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot about the club, and the fact that it was in lots of ways a very similar club.
Yeah.
In terms of the family environment. Curbs had been there a long time, so it wasn't, with Aston Villa, for instance. But I had sort of not a feeling, but I never felt comfortable that Graham Taylor was going to be there that long.
Yeah.
When I spoke to him, and he actually got sacked 3 months after I spoke to them.
Proven right, yeah.
So whereas with Curbs, I always felt, he'd been there a long time, and it wasn't as if he was going to be leaving anytime soon.
Yeah.
And listening to his thoughts and what was happening and other players that he was bringing in, etc. So yeah, I wanted to sign.
Was there any games that stand out? Obviously, I'm sort of asking that as a loaded question, but that season we had the Chelsea 4-2.
Yeah, I think that
you got a goal
probably,
in that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that probably does stand out as a highlight. Yeah, not least because we beat Chelsea, but it was Boxing Day as well. And that year, my kids sort of asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said, nothing. I said 3 points against Chelsea and a goal.
You got it.
And a goal would be nice.
Yeah.
So they obviously delivered on their promise.
Yeah.
So it sort of stands out really, that one, for that reason. Matt Holland there, was kind enough to give us a call earlier this week. Great captain for us at a really good time for the club. He turned up at 2003-2004 season. Finished 7th that year.
Yeah,
what a player he was.
I think he's a great player, and I think we did well to get him. He had that Ipswich had that really good season, and they got relegated, and we were quite lucky to get our hands on him. I think he was an absolute leader and a nice fellow as well. I mean, you had a few dealings with him, didn't you?
Yeah, he was a great man, a great leader as well, and he done brilliant for Charlton. Over the last 20 odd years, he'd be one of my favourite players. He was, wouldn't score many goals, but he was very effective for what he'd done.
He scored the one at Leeds. There was a goal away at Leeds, and he was telling us about that as he was running about to hit it, he could hear a voice shouting, "Shoot, shoot!" And he's convinced, 100% convinced it was a ref. That it could have a pop. Serious. Good player. And another one who didn't get a chance to say goodbye to the fans, which was
relegated to League One by that stage.
Yeah, relegated, and he wasn't
okay,
required.
You can read an interview with him in full in Saturday's Valley Review, and priced at £3, available from around the ground. Okay, tickets for Charlton's upcoming matches are now on sale and can be bought online, over the phone, or in person from the ticket office. Tickets for Saturday's match against Ipswich Town are still on general sale, as are tickets for the matches against Blackpool, Nottingham Forest and Blackburn Rovers. Charlton fans can give the gift of the Valley this Christmas by snapping up a half-season ticket in SC7. Adult prices start at just £12.50 per game, and those interested can log on to cafc.co.uk for full details. And if you can't make it to the Valley on Saturday, you can always listen to a live commentary on our Matchday live service on CFC Player, starting from, I believe, 12:15 on Saturday.
12:45.
And after, with Pete and Terry Smith, and after the whistle, there'll be match reaction from Bob Peters live about 10 minutes after the final whistle. Is that right?
Something
Pete?
like that. Yeah.
Yes, and just a reminder that it's 12:15 because I nearly forgot there, but it's 12:15.
Yeah,
So make sure you get down here early to have your be here. Okay, Paddy, at the end of these shows, we always like to have a little bit of a fun, you know, rather get some old photos out or something. But digging through the archives, I found some bizarre footage, not of you, thank God, but you'll be thinking. But do you ever watch A Question of Sport where they show sort of someone doing something strange? You've got to try and guess who it is. They cover their face. It's basically that, and you've got to try and guess which of your old teammates it is who's playing the kit lady at Sparrows Lane. Let's have a little look, and we'll pause it before it gets revealed. Any ideas who this could be? What's going on here? Just doing the washing.
Might get a clue from the kit, possibly, but not.
There he is.
Oh.
Who is that?
I'll have a go at that.
Who is that man?
Oh dear.
One of your old teammates.
I'd have to say Derek Howes then.
Saying Derek Howes.
I'm thinking it's Flash because of the hair.
Well, the hair's a giveaway there. Is it? Well, they've had similar hair.
Yeah, no, it's a lighter shade, isn't it?
So you're saying Derek, you're saying...
I can't see Derek Howes ever putting a penny on.
Can you see... Can you see Ryan Flanagan ever putting a penny on?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, definitely,
yeah. That's
You don't seem surprised in the slightest. Right, let's have the big reveal then. Hey! It's Ryan Flanagan. I
knew it was one of them.
No idea why that was in the archive. One of those weird videos they did in the 80s, I think. So Mike Flanagan there, and we talked about him a bit earlier on, but a good teammate and a good servant for Charlton.
Yeah, good teammate. Played with him in America as well, but he's good goal scorer, very good player, strong, and no, he's very, very good.
Okay. I think that pretty much wraps up tonight's show. Before you leave, there's just time for me to thank Colin Powell for joining us. Thank you, Colin, and for you for watching. We'll leave you with a couple of Paddy's best moments in a Charlton shirt. We'll see you at Saturday against Ipswich.
Jeffries. Oh, what a good shot! Oh, and what a goal by Colin Powell. Tremendous goal for Charlton Athletic. He took that inside, and Colin Powell whacked that with his left foot and makes it one.
Chris Galvin. Colin Powell for Charlton. To Hales. Little touch for Hunt. Powell again. Long raking strike. Warman. Powell has continued his run. And Warman couldn't quite pick him up, but now he has. Well, he's gone past him. And he's got a good cross in. Oh, what a goal!